Welcome back to another episode of Who the F**k. It's the show that aims to take a deep dive into some of the acts announced Reading and Leeds 2019. In today's video we're looking at Prospa. They're a DJ and production duo from Leeds. If you've never heard of them before, hopefully this video will help answer the question, who the f**k are Prospa? Harvey Bulmer and Gosha Smith are the two people that make up the DJ and production duo Prospa. They're a young duo from Leeds. Their closest genre that I can compare them to is probably breakbeat. They don't make your typical 4/4 house sound. It's kind of mixed with this really wonderful 90s acid house sound as well. These really wonderful vintage sounding drums, but you manage to make it sound really current and not a throwback. Musically, they remind me a lot of the Chemical Brothers. With a less of a kind of jagged edge is probably the way I would describe it. And like I said earlier, DJing wise, they have a real acid house sound, reminding me loads of the early work of The Prodigy. But the strings in Prayer, you know, they might as well be taken straight out of a Massive Attack record. The duo broke onto the scene playing Creamfields and ADE for the BBC Introducing Stage. I first came across them with their record Prayer, which was made one of Annie Mac's hottest records in the world at the end of last year, I think it was. Last week, they were again made hottest record in the world for their song Intended. Which is a wonderful follow-up record. The same night they also played for Radio 1 in the Rave Lounge. They did like a 25-30 minute set showcasing some new music, and they played this incredible remix of Where's Your Head At by Basement Jaxx. And teased a little bit of Together by Data Transmission. Bar the fact that they're from Leeds, there's very little information that I have about them. So I think it would be good to utilise this time on this channel as a little bit of a discussion about dance music at the moment. I've been a fan of electronic and dance music from a very young age. One of my earliest memories of kind of pop music in general is dancing around my living room to Firestarter by The Prodigy, watching Keith Flint in an underground train station with an American flag jumper on. You know, it's so iconic. And some of those massive house records from the 90s would soundtrack my youth. My dad was massively into things like Another Chance by Roger Sanchez or You're Not Alone by Everything But the Girl. You know, some great records that came out in the 90s. When I was a teenager, I became slightly more obsessed. Started making a lot of drum and bass and dubstep, following the scenes obsessively, along with things like Fidget House and the French electro scenes. But following uni, those scenes either died or I just kind of lost a bit of interest. The drum and bass scene seemed to get a little bit more commercial, the underground wasn't quite as strong as it was, it lost some of that kind of raw character that I fell in love with. And what was popular was deep and tech house, something that I really struggled to connect with as genres. Samples started to disappear and a lot of music sounded really repetitive and just felt kind of trendy. Disclosure rose to fame. I like Disclosure, it's worth putting that out there now. But in their kind of wake, they brought back things like Garage and provided an amazing platform for deep and tech house. That's not to say there weren't people that I didn't like. There are some great house records out there that I do really love. People like Henry Crinkle, Julia Bashmore, Red Light, Shallow Child. There's a long list, and I've actually done some really good house mixes in the past that I really like. But as a whole, I found it really kind of uninspiring and started to just find a lot more kind of pleasure in listening to guitar music, which is no bad thing either. But in the past year or so, there's been this kind of like ringing in the distance of some wonderful electronic and dance music out there, breaking out of that kind of deep and tech house sound. And Prospa, they represent this kind of diamond in the rough, or this glowing light at the end of the tunnel of kind of sounds that I've not found very interesting. Other artists in that category include people like Dennis Salter, Melody, Alex Virgo, Kate Renada, Nudes, George Fitzgerald, Pharaoh, Sam Galatry, Salute. Just to name a few, there are some incredible artists out there. They're starting to use samples and break away from a 4/4, and it still sounds kind of housey and 90s, which is cool, but there's something just kind of new and exciting about it, and I really like that. It's really great. I've also started listening to a lot more drum and bass again, which I like. And to the gentleman that watched my video on Dimension last week and asked me to give them some recommendations, I'm on it. It's a hard question to answer. Their most popular record is a song called Prayer.
This song is my prayer. I can't go only you.
Currently sat on 1.4 million plays on YouTube. I'm really surprised that it's not more, because it's an absolute belter. And this is their first time playing Reading and Leeds. And because they're from Leeds, I imagine that hometown set is going to be full of energy. They're currently down to play the Friday at Reading and the Sunday at Leeds on the dance stage, in between Destruction Boys and Dylan Francis. WTF video for Dylan Francis is on the way. That's just one of those I want to put some effort into, purely for the fact his Instagram is hilarious. On the likely to see scale, this is a bit of an interesting one. Usually I don't go out of my way to see DJs. But then, that being said, I haven't watched that many DJs in the last few years, and there's something that's kind of exciting that's going on at the moment. It's usually hard to kind of compare people on the dance stage because the sets work a little differently. Sometimes they just go continuously. There's not like a gap in between. So working out who they're going to clash with is probably a little different to everyone else. Also, it definitely needs bulking out. They usually have way more names on that dance stage. My video about that yesterday would have explained all of that. But currently it looks like they're clashing with Yumi at 6, Pale Waves, Hockey Dad, Puppy and Masika. WTF videos for Puppy and Masika are on their way, I promise. So I think we all know where this is going. On the likely to see scale, I'm going to go with an 8 out of 10. I think they're doing something that's really interesting in the music industry at the moment, and I'm really excited to see their set. What do you think? Are Prospa an act that you're excited to see at this year's festival? Have you seen them perform before? Have you heard of them? I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section below as always, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers. Bye.